as the sun's rays dwindled in the sky. This signaled the approaching time for the third important meal of the day, dinner. Since Lincoln was absent, this would become a pretty awkward affair, as the one vacant seat at the table was quite obvious. However, this is somewhat of a nullful Albert as he arrived at the house just 2 hours ago. Aside from Rita, the rest of the family was quite shocked to hear the sudden appearance of their elder relative. But one quick explanation from the Manach had everyone understand why. It was a lot better to bring in a new face that could understand and hopefully give some light into the situation. Most importantly, Albert was someone to the family they could trust, not open fly off the handle in an attempt to bring unwanted aid, aka law enforcement. Even so, dinner was quite awkward and silent event. Albert sat in the chair Lincoln would usually occupy. Half the sisters weren't exactly hungry as they were too caught up in their thoughts on how to bring Lincoln back. Or in Lucy and Lynn's case, the former passing glance at the latter every few minutes as the athlete was still being able to be a Miss Doom and Gloom experie of the Queen herself. With Lisa and Lily as they silently ate as if nothing was amiss. It was hard to keep a straight face, though, seeing as the rest of the young family was being solemn or depressed out of being their minds. It was especially grating, considering the new information they had on now a strange sibling, and yet the youngest two of the family kept their mouths shut. Despite this being an infant, Lily understood the gravity of what Lisa told her earlier. "I know what you're thinking, my youngest sibling. We should all go tell everyone else what we saw in the video feed and try to get Linky back." But it's not that simple. Given the circumstances, even if the rest of your immediate family were to discover Lincoln's whereabouts, they might jump the gun and try to speak and try to relinquish him from the current setting. Such results would be unspeakable, as this may cause Lincoln to inform local law enforcement of his plight and potential abandonment faced a week ago. While I take no joy in watching our family suffer the consequences, no matter how justified they may be, such actions would result in permanent damage to the family. Not only that, Lisa paused as she looked at regret and dejection showing. I owe Lincoln my lack of aid for helping him defuse the false claim of superstitions, but at least I could do now is keep his whereabouts a secret for his sake. A frown look hold on the infant's face as she continued sucking on her bottle. Intentionally, Lily had a difference of an opinion on the matter, about to cry to get the attention of everyone else in the house. But as usual, Lisa brought up valid points, making the voice of the baby die out temporarily. Even though he was 10 years older than her, Lily looked up to her brother more than one would think. She liked his smile. The way he cared for her was when the two were alone. Their odd taste of foods. More importantly, Lily saw Lincoln probably the best playmate she ever had in her family. Her and Lisa were too different for it to work, being that Lily just knows next to nothing, and Lisa being the smartest in the house. The baby soon took her bottle out of her mouth and simply placed it on the table. Given a little sigh, it just seems like she just didn't feel as hungry as she thought she would. As dinner ended, the family went back to planning, moping, etc. Both Lynn Sr. and Rita sat in the living room, looking over one of the family photo albums. Naturally, they were mainly pictures of their son. It started from when Lincoln was first brought into the world, Rita having a tired smile on her face as she put her newborn at the time with Lynn, feeling like the luckiest man alive at the fact that he now had a little boy to raise. Turning a few pages show Rita feeding Lincoln his baby food, even breastfeeding at one point, to another picture with Lincoln taking his first steps. Soon they skip forward to a few years later, and Lincoln had been taught how to ride a bike by none other than his own father. There were some cute moments of Lincoln with the other kids in it as well. One such photo included Lori spoon-feeding Lincoln ice cream, Luann, Lincoln, and baby Lucy on a mechanical pony ride, Lincoln and Lynn Jr. sharing a bath, and the two aforementioned kids playing ball, Lincoln playing with his twin sisters, who were infants at the time, as well as several group photos of several of the loud children by the name shot. So many good memories, now overshadowed by the negative feelings of recent times. Both parents decided to shed tears after going through a few more pages, still unable to believe that they actually tried to cut one of their own kids out of their lives. It was no question that having so many kids would be a huge challenge, but despite the trouble they had caused, both the parents loved them all the same, or just so they thought. The two adults heard steps creaking, turned to see Albert coming down with a solemn look. "How's Junior doing?" Rita asked. "Well, couldn't tell her between the spooky one and herself, so that was a challenge. When you get this old, your eyes don't function as they used to. I knew I should have brought my contacts." Albert propped himself at the back of the couch. "What you looking at?" "Just some old family photos," Lynn Sr. replied. The elder man took a moment to skim. "Seems like you all had fun times back and then." He chuckled. "Yeah, what changed?" And even the monarch or potarch could respond to that, still trying to figure out for themselves. "Oh, when I peek in Lincoln's room, that's at the one at the end of the hall, right? Did he always have his stuff packed in bins? I would have sworn he had a bed in there or something." Albert scratched his head in confusion. Rita and Lynn Sr. looked at each other in guilt. "Actually, Dad, we tried to sell his furniture, but it was broken beyond repair. So we threw it out," Lynn finished. Albert gave a sickened expression. "Now, what compelled you to do that? I know it was bad enough you made him sleep outside, but did you really have to sell his stuff too? It's like you all had to wait and to kick him out or something. I mean, he's not even 18 yet." At this point, Lynn was growing irritated. He already had a chewing out from Henry earlier. He felt like more like shit because of it. He knew he messed up big time. All of them did. And it didn't even help to be constantly reminded of that one person they would like to come to was home out there, hiding from his family in anger. Now infuriated, Lynn stood up and faced the old man. "How dare you say that? We haven't been planning to kick our son out of that, if that was what you're implying. And the reason why we sold this stuff was because we thought it tainted with bad luck, which at that point we now know it isn't true. Yes, we messed up big time, but how do you think we feel about this, Albert? Our only son is still out there because we neglected his feelings and safety for our own desires. And we still feel like fools for believing in the other kid's claim on his bad luck. Lincoln even told us the truth, and we still didn't believe him." More tears were now streaming down the father's face. "I even asked him to step away from the house. What kind of a father does that? We tried pushing him out of our lives without even realizing it. And now look what happened. I was even more concerned about his false good luck, now traumatized of how he was being attacked by a vicious reptile." Lynn sat back down on the couch as he started to sob. Rita comforted the man as he continued to bawl on about the furniture. Albert had to admit a few things. 1, he didn't expect Lynn to lash out like that. 2, his choice of words were rather cruel, to be honest, but it was the truth. 3, even though the old man should be more upset at Lynn since he's the father and definitely should know better, seeing him as a pathetic sack of sadness told Albert how much the potarch regretted everything he did. "Lynn, Rita, sorry about saying that. I know what I said was harsh, but it's just what I had on my mind. While I'm disappointed that you guys let something like this happen, at least you're feeling guilty about it." Albert placed a hand on Lynn's shoulder. "Now, Lynn, when I first met you, I was rather critical because I didn't know about you besides from the love letters my daughter kept sending. When I finally did put a face onto the name, you seemed like a nice guy. Pretty soon I would call you son-in-law. I still use you as my son, which is why I'm very disappointed at you. I know you could be an idiot for a lack of words, but I thought you'd think twice before labeling your own son as bad luck. You couldn't even do a hell of a lot better than this, especially since you were so happy to finally get a boy in a sea of girls." The old man remembered the look the father's face when he told him he finally had a grandson now. "No offense, Rita, but you both been the two in the baby making process, so I thought I'd be stuck with all girls." He laughed. "Daddy!" Rita laughed, cheeks reddening. "I mean, honestly, you two kept going downtown so much that you had 5 kids in only 5 years. At least when you had Lincoln, you finally start to learn to space out. Not even myself and Mary had us kept going." The old man laughed harder. Both parents blushed profusely. While Albert was having fun with this, the younger adults didn't like talking about their sex life, but especially since when the kids were in the house. God knows how many questions might pop up from them. The younger ones, namely. Oh, okay, we get to the point, Lynn deadpanned. But anyways, I hope you learn a lesson from this. No matter what happens, everyone is family and no silly talk of ghosts, harpies, or whatever will change that. Understand? Rita and Lynn both nodded. But we still don't know where Lincoln is. He said he found a place to stay and he didn't want to be found. He might tell us where he's at when he's ready, but I don't feel it will be anytime soon, the father explained. Well, I could go out for a bit and look for him. Not tonight, though. It's a little late for that. Looking outside, it was indeed nighttime. Not only that, but the pitter-patter of rain could be heard on both roof and the street. The parents sighed before putting the album back on the shelf and retiring to their room. Perhaps some better circumstances would be in store for them tomorrow. Whenever a storm passes, it's usually a result in beautiful clear sky with not a cloud in the sight, and this Saturday was certainly no exception. Birds chirped happily as the residents of Royal Woods was getting ready to take advantage of yet another weekend. However, in this case, living on Franklin Avenue, they took advantage of the quiet morning to enjoy themselves. It came back as a shock that a few weren't aroused by the constant noises emitted from the particular house every single weekend, but the neighbors decided not to question it. While the loud house was indeed awake, none of the sisters engaged in their usual activities. Sure, Luna and Luann were still cooking up a song with a few jokes aside, while Lisa was hoping to make something up in her lap as a present for Lincoln. But outside of that, not much else went on. The family ate breakfast and had a few chats, then went their separate ways. Lenny was beginning to construct a new bed. Lucy was alone in her room writing her poetry book, was also conversing with her bust of Edwin and Fangs. But as for the sports-obsessed Loud, given her foot injury, there wasn't much Lynn could do until it healed. Whenever she was bored, she normally sat in her room throwing a tennis ball at the wall, but she just wasn't in the mood for it. Currently, she was still lying on the grass wet on the backyard, staring up at the sky with a dull expression. While she did have another nightmare like the other ones occurred the previous night, she still felt like the worst Loud in the whole city, in the family. Giving an audible sigh, Lynn continued with her staring contest as the wild blue yonder, at least until a fly ended up going right to her nose. Giving a small yelp, Lynn then sat up and gave a loud sneeze to get rid of the foreign object before rubbing her nostrils. Stupid flies, the athlete grumbled. She then heard a pair of feet, shuffling from behind her, but didn't see who it was. Still moping around, huh? Hey, Pop-Pop. I thought Lucy was the gloomy one, yet you're still beating her out by the mile. Albert kneeled down to her level. So what's the problem, champ? Everything. It's my fault my family is like this. I made Lincoln come to my stupid game and blamed him for our loss, just because I couldn't take any responsibility for my actions. I put all my faith in luck, and look where it's gotten us. I lost my brother. My family's torn over it, and I'm nothing but stupid, inconsiderate bitch. Lynn then tugged her legs to her chest. Albert frowned at Lynn's choice of words, but yet he could still see her point. No, sweetie, I wouldn't say that you are. You just need to realize your mistakes and— Yes, I am! Lynn shouted, in defiance as she faced her grandfather. I'm the one who intentionally blamed Lincoln as bad luck. I'm the one who helped spread the rumor about his luck. I am the one who turned the whole family against him when he actually told the truth. I couldn't even handle the harsh words he said about me, and when he told me when I was a sore loser. Tears were streaming down her face now. She held up her foot. See this, Pop-Pop? Lincoln bit me there, and I fully deserved it. Last time I spoke to him, I told him I wished he was never born. The athlete's voice was now broken. As she began to cry harder, I never meant to say that. If anything, I'm the one who shouldn't have been born. She sniffled. All the times I treated him like a wuss. All the times I took advantage of him because he's not athletic like me. I'm officially the worst sister in the family. Lincoln's all gone because of me, and he's not coming back. Lynn finished, continuing to cry to the ground. Albert watched his distressed granddaughter, fixing the family's problems were going to be more troubling than he originally thought. So far, he at least got Rita and Lynn Sr. to calm themselves and promised to find Lincoln today. But for Lynn Jr.? How could one calm, hyperactive 13-year-old who plays paces all the time blame squarely on their shoulders? Especially when such an event that effectively nearly shattered the family apart. There was one thing he could do right now. Albert hugged the sobbing athlete. There, sweetie. Just let it all out. Since this whole incident started, Lynn had been keeping it in for so long, as she wasn't the one to cry in front of her family. She tried to be strong, showing her signs of depression, but it wasn't enough to stem the immense guilt she felt. The sweet satisfaction was all getting to her negative energy released, was helping more than she originally thought. Lynn tripped on the arms of her grandfather as she continued to pour her heart out, letting the sharp pain slip through the tear ducts and constant sniffles. I was going to try and find Lincoln today. Now, I don't have a clue of what my look-alike would be hiding, but with that hair of his, it shouldn't be too hard to find him. Want to come with? Lynn shook her head, her eyes red from crying. No, I can't. I just can't see him so soon after what I did. He probably will give me more than just a broken heel. I don't think he'll be that bad, but it's your choice, dear. You sure you don't want to go? Lynn nodded, not saying anything. Albert pecked her on the forehead before heading back outside. The jock stared at the sky in sadness. While she still got a good amount of her guilt in her system, Lynn wouldn't be happy until Lincoln actually returned home, even if she shows she thought otherwise. While Albert was outside with Lynn Jr., the twins were putting their own plan into action. Lola was making sure her princess car had enough fuel to be going around town for a few hours, while Lana double-checked the supplies they were bringing. The tomboy twin didn't have much confidence in their plan to bring Lincoln home, but Lola reassured her that she went over every possible contingency, because, like it or not, Lincoln needed to see how broken this family was getting. Lana was met with her twin in the garage, who was starting up the engine. Lola, I'm still not sure if this idea will work. You said it like 5 times already. I know you're nervous about seeing Lincoln again, but trust me, I am too. This just wasn't the same boy I saw when he hoisted me up like that. But we gotta do something. Everyone else is trying to find ways to make up to him. Lenny, like her for example, building his furniture. Yeah, about that. I was thinking maybe I could help her and... No, Lana. She's actually doing that on her own. We need to do something on our own. And before you argue that Luna and Luann are doing the same thing, that's because they couldn't come up with anything individually. Lana opened her mouth to argue, but immediately closed it, debating her twin would just lead into another fight, which it wouldn't get them anywhere. The handy woman gave a sigh. I guess. Now hop in. We're going Big Brother hunting. Lana stepped into the passenger seat, buckled herself up. But if this doesn't work, I'm moving to the tool shed, she stated with the earnest. Noted. Let's go. The two sped out of the garage and onto the street, and if anyone asked where they were up to, the story was just that the girls needed some fresh air. And there was a truth to actually this, though. Spending all day in a depressing house wouldn't do them any good, as Lola had a good point out the sun was good for their beautiful skin. But today, Lola just ditched her usual pageant gown and tiara favor of regular clothing. If things weren't getting so ugly, at least their clothes would be spared. The twins sped down in 2 places Lincoln would normally frequent on weekends. However, the results were pretty negligent. Over the past couple of hours, the twins searched all over their place for their estranged brother. He wasn't at the arcade, he wasn't at the Burpin Burger, he wasn't even at the mall to check out the new comics or video game titles, he wasn't at the pizza shop, and the last place they checked was the skate park. That was the last one, was just an odd one out, considering that the twins knew that Lincoln didn't have a skateboard. He did have a bike though. Unfortunately, the only person they really recognized there was Ronaldo, but neither Lola and Lana had the guts to approach her, due to the fact that Hispanic girl had been casting a mean look at them yesterday. They didn't know the reason, but opted not to think about it. For someone with white hair, Lincoln is sure hard to find, Lola stated as she drove through the neighborhood. And we've been out here for how long? Lana asked, popping some chewing gum. Lola looked at the clock in her car. 4 hours? Lola, I'm not going to rain on your idea, but if we've been up out here for that long, what makes you think we'll find him now? Hey, I'm trying to be the optimistic one here while you're busy brooding. We've checked the comic store. He wasn't there. He wasn't at the burger place, not at Flip's, and he sure wasn't at the arcade. The only good part of the visit that there was a tons of chewed gum I found, Lana said, popping another piece in her mouth. Like, ew! Can you stop doing that? What? Eating chewed gum. Show some class for once. Lana just gave a simple shrug. No matter how many times they had this fight, it always boiled down to two things. Lana was the messy one who liked getting dirty, and Lola was the clean one with the germ phobia. And nothing Lola said was going to make her change that. As a tomboy sidecast glance from the fuming sister, that was when she saw something. Stop the car! What? I said stop the car! Lana yelled. Lola hit the brakes, making the tires screech as they have leaf-burned rubber. What was it? I think I just saw Lincoln. Not all of him, but I know that white tuft of hair anywhere. What? Where? Back some. Lola did as instructed as she backed all the way until they could see down another street that led further into the neighborhood. Sure enough, the twins' eyes weren't deceiving them. About 30 feet away from gaining back turn, they spot the white-haired boy with an orange polo and blue jeans. Lincoln had been walking around the neighborhood in an attempt to take his mind off his relatives. With that being it was the weekend, it was pretty risky considering that there was a decent chance his family would be out looking for him. However, the boy thought that he wouldn't have to worry about this, considering the threat Lucy should have passed down to the others by now. Once he visited the places he would normally frequent earlier than usually would, with Ronaldo tagging along, she also wanted to get out of the house to see if there was nothing to do. Only recently they had parted for the time being, as the school bully wanted some air. While Lincoln was walking, being left alone did wonders to his thinking. Having his earbuds plugged in, the only thing the boy was aware was while he was walking, what was in front of him. Since his current mood was indifferent, he didn't have the anger or sadness to influence his thoughts. Thinking back to his rant on Thursday, he started to feel that probably took things a little too far, in this case for a few of his siblings. For example, Lenny wasn't exactly the smartest loud and was quite gullible. When she did have a few genius moments, those were about between to make it seem like a complete monster. Plus, considering what she did to forget about a lot of things, would quickly tricked into last April Fool's Day, proved Lincoln supposed he could give Lenny a small pass. Same with Lily, considering that she's only an infant. No matter how many times she annoyed him, babies don't know a whole lot, and Lily sure as hell isn't like Lisa. He might even give Lisa some credit, since she did explain to him that she tried telling the family of his false luck, but they didn't listen. That wasn't about to say they had their moments. During that bet, in which the kids had to stop doing their annoying habits, Lincoln faced a 5-to-1 odds of nearly won. He admitted that Lily's habit of crying wasn't annoying, as babies tend to do that when something was wrong, and he should have picked up something else. Still, as unfair as stakes as they were, Lincoln technically did prove his point, that he could outlast his sisters by giving up their habits. Only Lola was the hardest, but even when she gave in considering the state of her face, and Lincoln wouldn't forgive himself if he purposely made Lily cry. But Lincoln would admit that the stakes were largely geared against him as well. If he had to give up his habit forever, while the girls would only stop complaining. Sure, they also had to buy him victory undies, but still. Not only that, just one guy against 11 girls? They each them collectively ganged up on him to make him surrender to his old habit. However, working as a team also did make its complications, as the girls dropped out one another after a span of minutes. Yet when Lily won, to which it meant the other girls could continue their habits without losing out, he couldn't read in his underwear anymore, but again he summarized that Lily and Lenny were influenced by their peer pressure, and wouldn't act like this on their own accord. As for the rest of the family, they were a different story. Between Lori's bossy attitude and Lola being spoiled princess she is, it's quite easy to see why they have been very upset with them. And just because Lori was the oldest gave no right to talk things over her siblings, and Lola certainly needed to learn at the word that she couldn't revolve around her, and her ego would certainly be an adjustment. Honestly, she was lucky enough to get a B on her test as well, and B's were pretty good anyway. Sure as the sister who of him got his victory undies, despite losing, but Lola also had a not so nice moments to begin with. She probably gets that attitude from Lori too, Lincoln bitterly thought. At least Lana's more tolerable, even if she does annoy me at times. I'm still at the fence of forgiving her due to treating me like an object instead of her older brother. Those were a few issues he had with those two. As for Luna and Lucy, the boy frowned on his face. There were two sisters, though, he could trust, in part since Luna seemed to be the nicest out of his older sisters, besides Lenny and Lucy. But of course she just tended to confide with Lincoln a lot about things. Yet he had learned the hard way even those he considered to seem a good relationship would be willing to run the bus over him in order to save their hides. All of this hard work to get Zombie Brand, and Luna was the first sister to take his treat out of spite. To good relationship would be winning on, but not to mention at the time she literally blasted him out of the room with beakers. Plus, there was a time where she, and along with the rest of the sisters and Lucy, blamed him for clogging the toilet. It was no question that Lincoln was still upset that him taking the blame for Lucy ended up amounting to nothing, considering she agreed the ousting from the house. Some sisters they were, he muttered, in a deeper frowning. Even if he did have good memories of the past, they sure weren't coming to light right now. Even if I can't trust Lucy and Luna anymore, that's still nothing compared to Luann and her constant puns and pranks. Her puns are one thing, but she doesn't have a brain to realize that her pranking gets tiresome and annoying. I don't care if it's April Fool's Day. That doesn't mean she has the right to go insane on the whole family. I ought to kicked her butt for trying to drag Ronnie Anne into it, especially since she used it as a way to lure me out of my safe place. I mean, I swear, that's what it is with her in April Fool's Day? She's lucky those raccoons didn't have rabies, and last April was just as hectic. I can't believe she made Dad buy land for a fake clown school and rigged a motel just to prank us. And speaking of Dad, it didn't help that he was in on this the whole time, but at least she still got a taste of her own medicine. Still, Luann said that she was going easy on us. Lincoln then shook his head. He then looked at his hands, and for the first time in a while, he actually had the malicious intent in his hands. Next time it's April Fool's Day, if Luann tries anything, I'm going to find her and kick her butt the first chance I get. I am not going through another prank of hell like last year, and I still owe her a smacking for using my feelings for Ronnie Anne against me. Might get her used the same way I got Lynn. The boy's hands clenched at that moment as he fought the egotistical athlete of her sister, and he would have put her in her place if she had not scored a direct hit to his groin. While Lynn was still very regretful for her actions, Lincoln was still convinced she hated him with a passion and bullied him to no end for the sake of her enjoyment. While Lincoln did score a good hit on her foot, he still wasn't so sure about the damage he did. All he knew is that Lynn busted up his right hand and he couldn't use it properly now, considering that Lynn also said that she wished he was never born. He'd be sure to give her a bigger piece of his mind if he ever were to run into him again. And this time no sisters would be around to separate them. Lincoln still didn't know what to think of his parents, outside of the fact they tried to oust him for their lives, despite him raising since birth. And although altogether was still a subject he didn't like thinking about. The white chip-toothed boy was busy with his thoughts. The twins rolled up behind him. It became clear that he didn't matter how they were just there because of the earbuds on his head, which they meant they were going to call him. To both of them it seemed nervous that they didn't even know if the middle child was just as upset as he was when he left the house or in slightly better spirits. "You should call out to him," Lana whispered. "Wait, why me?" Lola whispered back. "This was your idea. You saw the way he looked at me last time." Well, I'm still nervous about the whole gator incident. Lola sighed. Okay, we'll shout on free. Okay, 1. Lana looked nervous. 2. Lola felt her voice die out for a second, preparing for the worst. Free! Lincoln! This seemed to work, as the 11-year-old stopped walking and turned his head, seeing the twins, looking less pleased. I really gotta stop letting these people sneak up on me. Hi, both girls said shyly. Hey, he responded. Not seeing that Lincoln wasn't too upset about their sudden appearance, Lola decided to break the ice. So, how have things been, okay? Not entirely. Well, it's nice seeing that your hand is bandaged up, Lana finally spoke. Lincoln glanced at his right hand. I wish I could have gotten a better shot at Lynn, though, he glowered. Obviously, he's still mad about that. Gonna change his mind on something else, Lola thought. We were just passing by and want to take a stroll with us? Lincoln looked for a moment, trying not to think about it. No. But Lincoln, I'm still wondering if I should forgive either of you after what happened lately. You blamed me for getting a B on your test, and Lana treated me more like an object than her brother. It's not the first time you guys done something like that to me, Lola. But Lana, do you have any idea how I felt when you saved me just because you couldn't let your good luck charm be damaged? I felt as if you didn't care about me at all when you said that, aside from the fact that I still had the suit on. That really hurt. I know, Lana said, her voice barely above whispered. I can't help but stop thinking about it whenever I go to sleep. The tomboy was even too terrified to recall her nightmare. Feeling the state her twin was in, that made Lola step up her game. Okay, look, Lincoln, you may not like it, but you need to get back home. Our whole family has been a huge mess since you left. We're all sorry about the way we treated you, and we're going to work on regaining your trust. But please, don't make this mistake and get Mom and Dad arrested. Lincoln looked as if he was going to give it some thought. Being that this was Lola, he couldn't really take her word for it, but it did sound like the family was complying with his wishes. Still, the boy was being cautious. I'll take your word for it when I see it. I'll come home eventually, but not right now. Like I told Lucy, I can't trust any of you guys. Plus, I'm not even sure if my life is on the line. You guys will all actually save me as your brother and not as an object. For all I know, you might not care and just let whatever attacks me finish the job. He turned to leave. Lana whimpered like a dog as she felt the comment directed at her. Lola looked at her nearing crying sister and grew angry. She jumped out of the car and walked up to Lincoln, snatching the earbuds from him. When he looked at her in irritation, Lincoln felt the stinging pain of flat palm meeting his cheek. How could you, Lincoln? Your little sister over there had been suffering nightmares repeatedly due to that stupid gator incident. And you all could think about is, I don't care? Her nightmares were not being able to save you. She watched it from her own eyes of you being torn to pieces. Do you have any idea how much that's hurting her? Lincoln didn't know how to respond to that. Of course you don't, because you weren't there. Lola then pulled down his collar down so she could look at him straight in the eye. Now apologize to Lana, or so help me I'm going to. What are you going to do exactly? A voice spoke from behind them. Turning their heads, the trio saw Ronalda with a hard glare on her face. Apparently she had finished skateboarding earlier than expected, and she had a few beads of sweat on her forehead, a scratch on her cheek. Lola quickly straightened up Lincoln, then removing the wrinkles around his collar. Then nothing, Ronnie Anne. Oh, you were just saying hi. She laughed nervously. Really? 'Cause I'm pretty sure I just heard a fret just now, the elder girl said, the free hand clenched into a fist. No, why would I do any of that sort? Lola said, before grabbing something out of the car's trunk. It was a small, hand-wrapped box. Here, Linky, me and Lana made this for you. Bye. The cleaner twin then jumped into the car, before speeding off until they were out of sight. Ronalda watched until she could see not the twins anymore. She then turned her attention to Lincoln. You okay? Yeah, just annoyed. And I could have handled it myself, you know. And what happened to you? From the way you were looking at her, I think you were about to have Lola have her way with you, she smirked. As for the bruise, I did a landing wrong. I was lucky enough not to smash my face in. Ouch, Lincoln replied, as he did a double check. Hey, no, I wasn't. I could have easily held her off, but were you really going to hit her? The Hispanic girl took a moment to respond. I wouldn't have I wanted to. But like I told you the other night, I was going to protect you no matter what, even if it's from your own family. So what did they want? They wanted me to spend time with me, I guess, but obviously I wasn't in the mood for it. Then I made Lana upset because I am still miffed at her for the whole incident at the wrestling tournament. I'm just a bit conflicted right now. Lola was just defending her for what I said might have been too harsh. Well, you could think about that on your way back. Let's just get home before more of your sisters show up. She then shook his hand, and they started to lead him down the streets. By the way, you're going to open that? She gestured to the box. Lincoln then shook the box and heard something extremely light in it. At least he could tell it wasn't heavy like a boxing glove pulled back to punch him the second time he opened the package. I'll open it later. As the couple walked away, 2 pairs of eyes spied on them from the nearby bush. Although Lola had driven out of her line of sight, all she did was park around the car around the corner before the twins got back within earshot. They managed to catch the parts from where both kids referred to as home, and it didn't take the genius guess whose house they were talking about. The two looked at each other in shock before jumping back into the car and sped home. Everyone else was going to want to hear about this. Lori had been busy looking stuff on her computer for the past few hours. She had her talks with Bobby and had proven fruitless, and as the hard worker, didn't have much of a clue on how to help. Not only that, but Roberta was being oddly quiet over the past day or so. Lori couldn't place her finger on it, but she felt that her boyfriend probably was hiding something. As to why, she couldn't tell, but she figured out sooner or later the eldest sibling was actually searching for an Ace-Savvy website, as knowing Lincoln, he loved anything dealing with the series. However, she was looking for something in particular that could have words edited onto it, so she had a lot to say about her brother, about her behavior towards him. Lenny was also absent, but you could hear the sound of a buzzsaw working on the wood in the garage. Lori looked out the window for a brief moment and saw the twins in Lola's princess car. She thought of nothing of it, but until the sounds of tiny footsteps heard, rushing up the steps and towards her door. Swerving around in her car chair, she met with the gazes of the twins right as they burst into the room. They started talking at the same time, yelling different sentences that Lori couldn't quite make out. Whoa, whoa, girls! One at a time! We know where Lincoln is! They shouted. Wait, literally? Where? Seconds later, the entire house, and everyone hearing the range of it, the Lori yelled at 2 distinct words. He's what?